You are watching
I
Xirtus.
found the fool is like an adapter. He can mimic anybody that does something, so he can become any of those in the moment. Like there's this character in Final Fantasy VI, which is it's he's a
Great
mime.
game.
He's like a fool. He's dressed like a clown. He's a mime, and he doesn't speak. But any character's ability you use, he can immediately mimic it. And this guy, he's a he's just a bumbling no one. He's a, he's who he is. Go. You meet him
He's
underground. It's all in this
Goo for Go-Go Puffs. Yeah.
weird music, and he's kind of he doesn't speak, but he can fill any role. Not by himself, only in a group. Like a fool alone is the most depressing character on earth. The fool he's a bard. Well, I don't know if every fool is a bard, but a
I mean,
bard's
and the fool does have a cool little white dog, which is nice, right?
the fool. What a silly. Yeah, the fool is a powerful class.
I mean, like a fool is a king for a day, right? So like I was thinking anybody who thinks that they're going to be king for a day is a fool because they're going to end up having to, after being king, pay for the choices they've made, whether they were wise or whether everyone was too foolish to understand they were wise. I mean, right?
What was show Ian the first thing that you presented where you were relating Ian to this character? Was
Final Fantasy?
that called Andreas? You initially opened something before you went to just the fool as a kind of an origin.
Oh, the Go-Go character. Go-Go from Final
Before, as soon as Ian walked away, you opened up some old depiction of the fool.
Oh, yeah, Teal, was it Teal Eulenspiegel? There you go, Teal Eulenspiegel. And this is like this is a medieval famous kind of legend that the Germans have about this prankster who's this wise man, right? And he's kind of like the Gothic Nasreddin character, sort of like a Sufi philosopher, but he's also a fool. So he's able to say these things to these kings, which would otherwise get him killed, right? I think I forget the one that's one of the most famous ones, but it's like who's the fool or the fool who laughs at him, talking about the king because the king says, "Oh, Teal, you're such a fool." And he laughs.
Yeah, what does Obi-Wan say? Who's the bigger fool? The fool or the one who follows the fool?
The fool who follows the fool, right?
I think it's that Shakespeare, I believe. Who's more the fool or the fool that follows him? I'm not.
Sounds Shakespearean, but at my level is just that Obi-Wan
could be Obi-Wan
in A New Hope. Yeah.
That's a good point. Like, but that's a dark path. If you choose to be the fool and you choose to fool your followers, then you'll lose respect for them if they follow you because they followed a fool. So you got to be careful with actually being a fool. It's
King Lear's got "I am a fool, thou art one." That's basically the most famous one about the fool. And then maybe the foolery, sir, does walk about the orb like the sun. It shines everywhere. Right, but it's really their own kind of creation to take Till Eulenspiegel and to make it into the fool who follows him, which seems like on a religious level as well for Obi-Wan.
Right. Well, there's an illusion because if we're speaking to like what Eliphas Levi would do, where he'd take these Trump arcana and he would ascribe them, he would have these attributions attached to the Kabbalistic tree. You have traditionally Keter said to have two right sides. So when we represent it and you show that depiction of the Kabbalistic tree, keep in mind, the Zohar never depicts the tree. Like that's something that happened in the Middle Ages. So like people started
that tree we're talking about.
To it. Right. So this is a kind of a misleading representation here in terms of the attributions. And this has pathways that don't exist, put in pathways that should exist. Anyway. But if you look at above, where you have from Keter, there's these two pathways. You find a better version of it here. The one on the right, or any of those actually, other than that. So like you can see like the from the first extension from Keter on the top, the supernal triad, you have these two pathways. I'm like pointing like you can see my finger, but one pathway on the right would be the fool, and the one on the left would be the magician. Keter has two right sides. So like it's literally twisting into form, almost like nodes on a branch, right?
What's Keter?
Keter's it says crown because that's how it translates. It's the top, the uppermost part of the tree itself. Though you'd have Ein Sof is beyond this. So the way that things extend, this is all about formation, like how things come into form and solidify. It's organic life, right?
I want to listen. I don't want to interrupt. But what do you mean it has two right sides?
So this is to communicate this, to represent it, to articulate it, you have to kind of show it in this duplicit way. But it's
Oh,
misleading because what's
okay.
actually being described is this whole thing is like twisting into form in one directive. So you could see it like if you look at the crown of your head, the way that your hair will go, like if you shave your head and you look at the way it twists from that single point, you know, so it's all going in one direction. So there's this idea too that the right hemisphere is the basis for the left. So like even in the Matrix, when he's like holding out the two pills and we're going to take the red pill or the blue pill, you know, that's like kind of communicative around that you have this supposed duality, but really that duality is a polarity. So we're projecting the duality on top of the polarity, which itself is a continuum. So this is like the ultimate illusion is to take polarity as something that's kind of in conflict with itself. So here you go, where you have it's represented as a serpent or a lightning flash. And so this lightning flash extends through the tree. This is described in the Sefer Yetzirah, where how things twist into form. Same thing as like just saying the Fibonacci sequence. Like the Fibonacci sequence is encoded into lightning or all organic life, like whether it's a human, an animal, a tree, whatever. That's why it's the tree of life, right? Is that
Can you go back to that GIF that was just that movement? I appreciate that they had it go right here, go straight down. I appreciate that energy just drops in a straight line. That's not a straight line, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, there are no straight lines in nature. They just drew it like that because it's a beautiful shape. That would continue to twist forever. It doesn't ever go. But for the sake and purpose of explanation, we're going to have it just go.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Well said. And also there's a issue here between the supernal triad and the seven lower sephirot, where you have that zigzag going from Bina on the left, at the upper left, to Chesed on the right of the lower worlds. There's no pathway there that exists. So the pathway is actually vertical, and that's Gimel. And this is the key to understanding the real meaning of the Masonic G. So the G is for Gimel. It's a vertical line from Tiferet in the center of the lower worlds to Keter, the crown at the top in the supernal realm. So they're saying the mind of God and the mind of man. And so actually the square and the compass, the square is Gevora, Tiferet, Chesed, and the compass is Keter, Chochmah and Bina. And so that intersection, you actually have the star communicated there, and this middle pathway between what's here is the 6 and the 1. That is Gimel. That's your Masonic G. So it's saying the intersection of the upper and lower worlds is a square in the compass. So it's amazing that you don't hear this more. Like people just are like, oh, the G stands for geometry or God or whatever they want to say. But the meaning is encoded here.
When you say the square and the compass, what is that?
So, well, if you've seen the depictions of the Masonic G with a square on the bottom.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right.
What does the G stand for? No one knows really.
Gimel. It's a Hebrew letter Gimel, and that Gimel is attributed to that middle pathway between Keter and Tiferet.
Oh,
the upper worlds and the lower worlds.
Oh.
And so when you're looking at that, 777 lightning flash that extends through the tree that you're saying, you're absolutely right. There's no straight lines in nature, right? But the way that communicates itself is actually impossible, because to get from the upper left to the lower right there at the top of the terrestrial pillars, it has this impossible leap. And so the meaning is that there's a direct line between the mind of God and the mind of humanity. That's a vertical spiritual dimension, right? Just like the cross is like the intersection of the terrestrial and the spiritual. So they're showing you in the Kabbalistic tree directly that this Gimel is a direct line, and it's a high priestess in tarot. So, and it actually intersects with Dalet, which is the Empress. So you have this feminine aspect of God communicating as a cross in the upper and the lower worlds, the way they meet. And it's saying like we treat it that there has to be some intermediary between us and God. And what the Kabbalistic tree is kind of telling you is that there's a direct spiritual line. Like there's no need for an intermediary, but we pretend like there is. And that's why Freemasonry is showing you that, the way that they show it to you is because that's kind of the secret, is that we don't need an intermediary.
Freemasonry, it basically was just like, I don't want to say anti-religion. It was basically just like, did it just tell people dispel with earthly religion.
I think they just studied way more religions than anybody else. You have to remember, most of the time, Freemasons were at a time where people had no libraries. Only Freemasons had libraries, these men clubs. So they would read the Bible, which is already more than most Christians were doing at that time.
Right.
And they would also read other religious books, like the history of Egypt, or what they think came out of Tartary, or the Hermes Trismegistus Rosicrucian books. They had access to too many perspectives.